When I slapped my husband's mistress, he broke my 3 ribs. He locked me in the basement, telling me to reflect. I called my dad, who was a gangster boss, and said, "Dad, don't let a single one of the family survive." Hello everyone. Thank you for being here with me today. Before I begin my story, I'd love to know which city you're joining us from. Please feel free to share in the comments. Now, let me take you into this story. I was in Chicago for a big presentation, a keynote speech for a design conference. My husband, Barrett, and I had started a company together, but in the last few years, I'd stepped back to let him take the lead. I was the creative, and he was the businessman. Or so I thought. The presentation was a huge success. I was on a high, and all I could think about was getting home to Barrett. We were supposed to celebrate our anniversary that weekend, but I just couldn't wait. I remember the cab ride from O'Hare. I called my assistant, told her to cancel my Friday meetings. "I'm going home," I said, smiling into the phone. I felt giddy, like a teenager. I bought a bottle of champagne at the airport. I was picturing the look on his face. When the cab pulled up to our home in Greenwich, the house was dark, except for the upstairs bedroom light. It was late, just after 11. I paid the driver, told him to keep the change, and practically skipped to the door, fumbling with my keys. "Barrett, honey, I'm home." I called out, pushing the door open. Silence. The first thing I noticed was the smell. A heavy, musky perfume that wasn't mine. The second thing was the imported Italian marble floor in the foyer. It was cold under my feet, but what was on it made my blood run even colder. A pair of black lace stockings. A red silk bra. They were just dropped. A trail leading up the grand staircase. My heart didn't just pound, it stopped. It just seized in my chest. I set the champagne bottle down, very, very slowly. The click of my stilettos echoed in the cavernous silence as I walked to the bottom of the stairs. "Barrett?" My voice was a whisper. And then I heard it. A low moan from our bedroom. Our master bedroom. I kicked off my shoes. I think a small, foolish part of me was still trying to find an explanation. A movie? Was he watching a movie? But the moans got louder. And then, a laugh. A woman's laugh. It was sickly sweet, and it was familiar. "Barrett, what if your wife comes back early?" I froze. I knew that voice. Taryn. Taryn Vance. My best friend from college. The godmother to the child we never had. "Don't worry," Barrett grunted. His breathing was heavy, filled with an excitement I hadn't heard in years. "She's in Chicago. She won't be back until tomorrow." "And so what if she does?" "That broke designer. I'm the one who pays for everything anyway." That broke designer. After I had poured my entire inheritance from my mother into his startup. After my designs had won all the awards that put his name on the map. I was a freeloader. I didn't climb the rest of the stairs. I think I floated. My body was numb, but my mind was screaming. I didn't knock. I kicked the door open. The sight burned into my retinas. The two of them, pale and tangled in my sheets. My bed. Barrett scrambled off her. "Mallory," he yelled. Taryn just screamed, pulling the sheet over her chest, but there was a smirk on her face. A provocative, defiant smirk. "Mallory, listen," Barrett started, grabbing for his boxers. "This is all a misunderstanding." "Shut up," I said. My voice didn't sound like my own. I walked straight past him, my eyes locked on Taryn. "You," I whispered. I swung my hand and slapped her across the face with all the strength I had. The sound cracked through the room. Her head snapped to the side. Barrett roared. "Mallory, Are you crazy? He leaped from the bed. I turned to face him, and that's when he did it. He didn't punch me. He kicked me. A full force, powerful kick to my side. He was wearing his heavy work boots. I heard it. A crack. It wasn't loud, but it was sickening. The air just vanished. It was sucked out of my lungs. I couldn't breathe in. I couldn't breathe out. I just folded, clutching my side, and collapsed onto the floor, gasping like a fish. The pain was immediate, a white-hot, blinding fire that shot through my entire torso. I tried to inhale, and it felt like a dozen knives were stabbing me from the inside. Stop the drama and get up, Barrett sneered, pulling on his pants. I couldn't. I was trying to tell him I couldn't breathe, but no sound came out. Barrett, I think you really hurt her, Taryn said, her voice now laced with a tiny bit of panic. She deserves it, Barrett spat, buttoning his shirt. How dare she hit you? Her father is the CEO of Vance Industries. He looked down at me, his face a mask of contempt. You pathetic, nothing. The next few minutes were a blur of agonizing pain. Every time I tried to move, or even breathe, the broken ends of my ribs felt like they were grinding together. Barrett didn't call an ambulance. He grabbed me by the arm, the one on the side that wasn't on fire, and hauled me to my feet. I screamed, a strangled, breathy sound that only made the pain worse. Shut up, he yelled, his face inches from mine. You're going to reflect on what you did. He and Taryn, she was wrapped in my silk robe, I remember that, dragged me out of the bedroom. I was dizzy, my vision spotting with black. They didn't take me downstairs to the guest room. They hauled me through the kitchen and to the heavy oak door that led to the basement. Our basement wasn't finished. It was a cold, damp, concrete cellar where we stored old furniture and Christmas decorations. It smelled like mildew and earth. He opened the door and shoved me. I stumbled, lost my balance, and tumbled down the first few steps, landing in a heap on the cold concrete floor. The impact sent a shockwave of agony through my body so intense that I almost passed out. I just lay there, sobbing and fighting for every single, shallow breath. Don't give her anything to eat, I heard Barrett tell our housekeeper, who was standing at the top of the stairs with a look of pure terror. She needs to stay down there for 24 hours and think about her place in this house. The heavy steel-lined doors slammed shut, and the deadbolt clicked into place. Darkness. It was absolute. I was alone, in the dark, with 3 broken ribs, and a broken life. I don't know how long I lay there. Time just dissolved. My world shrank to the size of the next breath. Inhale, pain. Exhale, pain. I was so cold. I managed to crawl to a corner, pulling an old, dusty tarp over me. I huddled there, shivering, my teeth chattering. Each shiver sent a fresh jolt to my ribs. I started to wonder if I was going to die down there. If he'd come down in the morning and find me, a cold, broken-ribbed freeloader. I must have drifted in and out of consciousness. I felt for the phone in my jacket pocket. It was still there. Miraculously, the screen wasn't cracked. My fingers were so numb and stiff I could barely unlock it. The dim light of the screen was blinding. I was weak, dizzy, and I knew I didn't have much time. I scrolled through my contacts. Who could I call? The police? What would I say? My husband locked me in the basement? They'd call it a domestic dispute. My thumb stopped at the very bottom of the list. A single word. Dad. A number I hadn't called in 20 years. Not since my mother's funeral. My father, Dominic. He's a complicated man. My mother had run away from him and that life when I was a child. She wanted me to be normal, to be safe. After she died, I chose her path. I went to college, got a design degree, and cut off all ties with the family business. I never even told my father I was getting married. And what did all that noble pride get me? My finger hovered over the call button. I was his daughter. The daughter who had turned her back on him. What if he hung up? I didn't have the strength to call back. I pressed the button. It rang once. Twice. 3 times. I was about to hang up. Yeah. A low, gravelly, authoritative voice answered. A voice I hadn't heard in 2 decades. Dad? My voice was a raw, broken whisper. It's me. Mallory. Silence. For a long, terrifying 5 seconds, there was just silence. I thought he'd hung up. Dad, please, I cried, a broken sob escaping, which made me gasp in pain. Then, I heard a sound on the other end. A chair crashing to the floor. Mallory? His voice was suddenly urgent, sharp. Where are you? What happened? Who hurt you? My husband, I choked out, each word swallowing glass. He broke my ribs. He locked me in the basement. I'm so cold, Dad. Please, help me. Send me your address. Right now. His voice was ice. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Before the line went dead, I heard him yelling, "Get the car. Get Rocco. Now!" With trembling hands, I sent my location. And then, I started to laugh. A hysterical, painful laugh that sent daggers into my chest. Barrett, that fool. He thought I was just some ordinary designer. He had no idea who my father was. Less than 10 minutes. He wasn't lying. I was still huddled under the tarp, my phone clutched in my hand, when I heard the sounds. Not a siren. Nothing so public. I heard frantic footsteps upstairs. I heard shouting. A man's voice, not Barrett's, yelling clear. Then, a sound like a battering ram hitting a door. And then, the basement door didn't just open. It exploded off its hinges, crashing against the far wall. The blinding light from the kitchen flooded the staircase, silhouetting 3 huge men in black suits. "Miss Mallory?" a voice called out. A burly man with a shaved head and a broken nose rushed down the stairs, his eyes scanning the darkness. He knelt beside me, his face a mixture of professional calm and barely concealed rage. "I'm Rocco. The Dawn sent me to get you." He gently moved the tarp. His eyes went to my side, where I was clutching myself. His face hardened. "These bastards," he muttered. He looked at the stairs. "We need a board. Can't carry you. Your ribs." He barked orders into a small microphone on his cuff. As he was working, I saw 2 of Barrett's security guards, the ones he hired to look tough, lying unconscious at the top of the stairs. Upstairs, I could hear Taryn screaming. Not a scream of pleasure. A scream of pure terror. "This is private property. You can't be here." I heard Barrett yelling, his voice cracking. Rocco and another man carefully slid a flat piece of wood, it looked like a shelf, under me. Gritting my teeth against the fire in my chest, I let them lift me. As they carried me up the stairs like a medieval queen on a plank, I saw the scene in my kitchen. Barrett and Taryn were on their knees, held down by 2 other men in suits. Taryn was still in my robe, her face pale and blotchy with tears. Barrett was in his boxers and a half-buttoned shirt, trembling, his eyes wide with terror. "Mallory! Who are these people? What are you doing?" he screamed, struggling against the man holding him. I leaned weakly against Rocco's shoulder as he helped me into a waiting wheelchair. I gave Barrett a blood-stained smile. "Let me introduce you," I whispered, my voice hoarse. "This is Rocco. He's my father's right-hand man. And as for who my father is, you'll find out soon enough." "That's impossible." Taryn shrieked. She said her father was dead. Rocco wheeled me out the front door, past the trail of her clothes, which were now kicked into a dirty pile. A black, armored limousine was idling in my driveway. The door opened, and for the first time in 20 years, I came face to face with my father. Dominic. He looked older. His hair was more salt than pepper, but his eyes, his hawk-like eyes, were just as sharp as I remembered. Those eyes were now fixed on me, on my pale face, on the way I couldn't sit up straight. Sophia, he started, using my mother's pet name for me. His voice trembled, just slightly. He reached out a hand, then stopped, afraid to touch me. Get her to the medical center, he ordered Rocco. Tell Dr. Evans to prep an operating room. Now. I was gently lifted into the plush leather seats. As the door closed, I heard my father's voice, as cold as ice, directed at Rocco. Leave 2 men. Secure the house. Don't let them leave. Don't let them touch a phone. I'll deal with them when I get back. Then he got in the car with me. He pressed a button, and a soundproof partition slid up. It was just us. Who did this? He asked, his voice quiet. My husband. Barrett, I said, a bitter laugh escaping, which made me wince. I caught him cheating. With my friend. Taryn Vance. Vance? My father's eyes narrowed. Leland Vance's daughter? Yes. He stared at me, then a chilling, murderous glint I remembered from my childhood entered his eyes. He'll have his legs broken. And as for the Vances, leave no one from that family standing. We didn't go to a normal hospital. The limousine pulled into a private underground entrance of a discreet medical center, the kind that doesn't ask for insurance cards. A team was waiting. Dr. Evans, one of the top orthopedic surgeons in the country, was there personally. 3 fractured ribs on the right side, ma'am, he said gently, looking at the x-rays. Numbers 7, 8, and 9. 8 is a clean break. 7 and 9 are hairline, but painful. You're very lucky one didn't puncture a lung. He looked at my father. She'll be off her feet for at least 6 weeks. No strenuous activity. And breathing is going to hurt. Fix her, was all my father said. I woke up in a suite that looked more like a 5-star hotel room. My father was sitting on the sofa, a phone to his ear. I don't care about the market, he was saying. Liquidate it. Yes, all of it. He saw me stir and immediately hung up. How are you feeling? He asked, his voice rough. Like I got kicked by a mule, I whispered. My side was heavily taped, and a dull ache throbbed thanks to the painkillers. He will pay, my father said, his jaw tightening. Rocco is waiting for my order. He'll be at the bottom of the Hudson by morning. No. I said it louder than I expected, which made me wince. No, Dad. He looked at me, confused. What? He did this to you. He dishonored you. And death is too easy, I said, my voice as cold as ice. He called me a broke designer. A freeloader. He said I was nothing. If you kill him, I'm just a widow with a divorce settlement. No. I want him to suffer. I took a breath, the pain reminding me of my purpose. I want him to watch everything he built, everything I built, turn to ash. I want him to lose his company, his reputation, his money, his freedom. I want him to be the one who is broke. And when he has absolutely nothing left, then you can have Rocco take him. A slow, satisfied smile touched my father's lips. That's my daughter, he said. He pulled a thick file from his briefcase. Perfect timing. My people just found this. Barrett's company is betting everything on that new East River development project. Their bid is full of inflated numbers. And what's more interesting, your husband embezzled $3 million of company funds to launder at a casino in Atlantic City. He still hasn't filled that hole. I took the file. My heart started to race. This evidence alone was enough to send Barrett to prison, enough to make his company's stock plummet. Dad, I need time, I said, taking a deep breath. I'm going to pretend to forgive him. I'll go back to that house and gather more. I need to destroy him with my own hands. He frowned. It's too dangerous. Please, I insisted. He thinks I'm weak. He thinks I'm a pathetic nothing. He'll never see me coming. After a long silence, he finally nodded. All right. But Rocco stays by your side. 24/7. He then made another call. Wesley? I need you. My daughter's sweet. Yes, now. A few minutes later, a man I'd never seen before entered. He was in his late 30s, sharp, in a perfectly tailored suit, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Wesley Croft, my father said. This is my daughter, Mallory. Wesley handles all our legitimate investments. He's a prodigy. He's yours now. Do whatever she asks. Wesley looked at me, then at the file. I've heard a great deal about you, Miss Romano, he said. His voice was calm and steady. I've been tracking Barrett Hayes's company for a while. Their books are a mess. It would be my pleasure to help you clean them up. A few days later, a terrified-looking Barrett appeared at my hospital room door. His suit was wrinkled, and he had dark circles under his eyes. He was holding a pathetic bouquet of carnations. Mallory, his voice trembled. I had no idea. Your father. Don Dominic. I composed my face into a look of weary forgiveness. I'd been practicing in the mirror. It's my fault, too, Barrett, I said softly, wincing as I shifted. I shouldn't have hit Taryn. It was such a shock. He rushed to my bedside as if I'd thrown him a lifeline. Mallory, does this mean you forgive me? I must have been out of my mind. It was all Taryn's fault. She seduced me. I swear, it will never happen again. His clumsy acting made me want to throw up the soup I'd had for breakfast. But the play had to go on. You've already gotten an earful from my father, haven't you? I said. He visibly flinched. He was very clear. About my responsibilities. Let's just put this behind us, I said, reaching out a weak hand. When I get out of here, we can start over. Okay? Barrett nodded frantically, unable to hide his relief. He had no idea that as he held my hand with his phony sincerity, a hidden camera in the room was recording his every expression. On the day of my discharge, my father sent a motorcade of 10 black Mercedes to escort me back to the Greenwich mansion. The spectacle was so over the top it made the local news. Barrett stood at the front door, his face pale as he watched Rocco himself push my wheelchair inside. If even a single scratch appears on Miss Mallory, Rocco whispered in Barrett's ear, just loud enough for me to hear. The Don said he wants to watch you get eaten alive by wild dogs. Barrett's legs trembled. He looked like he was about to wet himself. Returning to the place I once called home felt disgusting. The bed in our bedroom was especially repulsive. Barrett had changed the sheets, but I could vividly picture him and Taryn writhing on it. I'll sleep in the guest room, I said. My ribs. I need to be propped up. Of course, anything, he said. Barrett, you should rest, I told him later that evening. I have an urgent matter at the office, he said, pouring me a glass of water before trying to make a quick exit. Okay. Come home early, I said with a smile, watching him leave. The moment he was gone, I poured the water into a potted plant. Rocco stood guard outside my door while I opened my laptop. As Barrett's wife and co-founder, I knew the passwords to all his devices. I logged into his cloud account and quickly found what I was looking for. Hotel booking records for the last 6 months. Bank transfer histories. And even a few videos that were hard to watch. "You animal," I muttered with a cold smile, saving all the evidence to a secure drive Wesley had given me. Just then, a new message popped up on his screen. It was from Taryn. "Barrett, thank God she believed you. I'll wait for you at our usual spot. I miss you like crazy, baby." I stared at the screen, then laughed out loud. The laugh sent a sharp pain through my ribs, but I didn't care. "Barrett, you couldn't even wait 3 days. Perfect. This would make my revenge all the more satisfying." The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in deception. I played the part of the fragile, forgiving wife. I'd sit in the garden, a blanket over my lap, sketching in my old notepad. Barrett would come home, kiss me on the forehead, and ask how I was feeling. "A little better every day, darling," I'd say. His parents, Garrett and his wife, came over for dinner. It was a production. My mother-in-law, who had always treated me like hired help, was now fussing over me, cutting my food, fluffing my pillows. "Oh, Mallory, dear, we are just so sorry about this whole misunderstanding," she gushed. "Boys will be boys, you know. We're just so glad you're part of this family." "Me too," I said, sipping my soup. "Family is the most important thing." Garrett, Barrett's father, was a little more transparent. He was nervous. "Mallory," he said, clearing his throat. "I heard your father, Don Dominic, has been buying up some bonds in the city. Big moves." "Oh, I wouldn't know about that," I said, smiling sweetly. "We don't talk business. We just reconnected. After all these years." Of course," he said, dabbing his forehead with a napkin. They were all terrified. Not of me, but of my father. They thought I was a broken bird with a powerful protector. They had no idea the broken bird was learning to fly and hunt. Meanwhile, Barrett continued his clumsy dance. He was subservient to me in public, but my PI, a gift from my father, was sending me daily reports. Barrett and Taryn were still meeting. Not at fancy hotels, but at a cheap motel on the edge of town. They were getting sloppy. They were getting desperate. I spent my days recovering. I'd have Rocco drive me to physical therapy, which was really a meeting with Wesley in a secure office downtown. "He's bleeding money," Wesley said, pointing to a chart. "He's trying to cover the $3 million hole, but he's doing it by taking out high-interest, unsecured loans. He's desperate to make the East River project work." "Good," I said. "How's our end?" "We've quietly acquired 3% of Hayes Construction stock," Wesley smiled. "Through a shell corporation. And I've been in contact with 2 minority shareholders who are very unhappy with Barrett's leadership. They're willing to sell." My phone vibrated. It was a message from my father. "The anniversary party for Hayes Construction is in 1 week. You will be there. You will be the perfect wife. And then, you will burn them to the ground." I looked at Wesley. "It's time to prepare for the party." "And Wesley? I need you to find me a financial prodigy from Wall Street. Someone handsome, someone who will make Barrett jealous. I want you to attend the party as my guest." Wesley adjusted his glasses. "I think I know just the man," he said, a small smile playing on his lips. Me. This was getting better and better. I spent the next week preparing. I picked out a dress, a deep crimson, blood red, with a slit that showed off my leg. My ribs were still healing, so I couldn't wear a corset, but the pain was manageable now. It was a good reminder. The night of the party, Barrett came into the guest room as I was getting ready. "Wow, Mal," he said. "You look stunning. It's an important night, I said, fastening an earring. The 25th anniversary. I can't have you losing face, can I? He breathed a visible sigh of relief. The foolish man. He really thought I was back. The party was held at the plaza. The ballroom was dripping with crystals and champagne. The moment I entered on Barrett's arm, hundreds of eyes turned to us. They were filled with curiosity, surprise, and mostly, the eager anticipation of a public spectacle. The scandal of a tycoon's wife being locked in a basement had been the whisper of the elite for weeks, but my forgiveness had confused them. Mallory, you look stunning tonight, Barrett whispered in my ear. His hot breath on my neck made my stomach churn. I suppressed my disgust and gave him a radiant smile. My father-in-law, Garrett, and his wife approached, their faces plastered with awkward smiles. My dear! How are your ribs? Garrett said, wringing his hands. We're so grateful for your understanding. I responded with a smile and scanned the room. I soon spotted Taryn by the champagne tower. She was wearing a white lace dress, making her look like a cheap wedding cake. She shot me a look full of resentment. She hadn't been invited, but as the daughter of Leland Vance, a major partner, she was here. I need to go say hello to an old friend, I said, releasing Barrett's arm. I walked over to Taryn. Taryn, it's been a while, I said, my voice just loud enough for people nearby to hear. Mallory, she sneered. Don't be so smug. Barrett is only with you because he's afraid of your father. I silenced her by placing my index finger on her lips. Let's not spoil the mood. There's going to be a fun little show later. Make sure you keep your composure. Before she could react, I turned away and came face to face with Wesley. He was dressed in a perfectly tailored navy suit, his eyes sharp. Miss Romano, he said, kissing the back of my hand. The Don speaks very highly of his daughter. Mr. Croft, I smiled. I was hoping we could speak, after. As the party got into full swing, Garrett Hayes took the stage to boast about the glorious achievements of Hayes Construction, conveniently omitting any mention of a $3 million hole in their finances. Finally, I want to thank my daughter-in-law, Mallory, for her understanding and grace, Garrett announced. What's important is that the family remains strong. Let's raise a glass to this lovely couple. Everyone raised their glasses. I lowered my head to hide the contempt in my eyes, then looked up with a warm smile. Barrett, seemingly moved, took my hand. Mallory, I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. You won't need a lifetime, I said softly. You can start right now. Leaving him with a puzzled look, I walked up to the stage, taking the microphone from the MC. Thank you all for attending. My voice was clear and steady. As the wife in this family, I've prepared a special anniversary gift. I gestured towards the lighting booth. The ballroom lights dimmed, and a massive screen slowly descended from the ceiling. Barrett's face tensed. No, Mallory, please don't. He tried to rush the stage, but Rocco appeared behind him, his hand clamping down on Barrett's shoulder like a vice. Enjoy the show, darling, I said, pressing a button on the remote. The high-definition screen lit up. A crystal-clear video of Barrett and Taryn writhing on my marital bed. Complete with graphic audio. A date stamp in the bottom right corner showed it was filmed just 2 days after I'd returned from the hospital. The ballroom erupted. Taryn screamed and ran for the exit, but was blocked by security. My father-in-law's face turned ashen. But that's just the beginning, I announced, switching the screen. Bank statements. Casino surveillance footage. My husband embezzled $3 million of company money to gamble in Atlantic City. And finally, I played an audio recording. Barrett on the phone with a demolition crew. I don't care if 1 or 2 of them die. The important thing is that the site is cleared by tomorrow. The ballroom fell dead silent. I walked step by step towards the ashen-faced Barrett. For 3 years, my designs won awards that raised your stock price 30%. My voice was quiet but sharp. And in return, you gave me betrayal, violence, and 3 broken ribs. Barrett's legs gave out. He collapsed to his knees. Mallory, I'm so sorry. I was wrong. But I forgive you, I suddenly raised my voice, turning to the stunned guests. Because I am just that loving of a wife. The room buzzed with confusion. My father-in-law, Garrett, as if granted a pardon, scrambled onto the stage and snatched the microphone. It's a misunderstanding. As you can see, my daughter-in-law has forgiven my son. Now, everyone, please, enjoy the party. He was trying to do damage control, but the damage was done. The investors were already clustered in a corner, their faces grim. The reporters were frantically typing on their phones. I descended from the stage, walking through a sea of complicated stairs, toward the corner where Wesley was waiting. He handed me a glass of champagne, his eyes shining with admiration. A magnificent performance, Mallory. It's just the beginning, I said, taking a sip. The next morning, the financial world exploded. The video had been leaked, by Wesley, to every major news outlet. The hashtag Hayes scandal was trending. By the time the market opened at 9:30 a.m., Hayes construction stock was in a freefall. I was in Wesley's high-tech office, which he'd set up in a discreet downtown building. We had 3 monitors open. One showed the stock ticker, one showed the news, and one showed a secure feed of our own accounts. The board is requesting a trading halt, Wesley said, his voice calm. But it's too late. The short sellers are having a field day. Good, I said, sipping my coffee. When does our plan go into effect? Now, he said. As the price hits rock bottom, our offshore corporation, the one you are the sole beneficiary of, will begin to buy. We're not just short selling, Mallory. We're executing a hostile takeover. My phone rang. It was Barrett. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again. My father-in-law. I ignored it. The rest of the week was a blur of beautiful, calculated chaos. I retreated from the public eye, playing the part of the humiliated wife. I let Barrett leave desperate, pleading voicemails. Mallory, please. You have to talk to your father. He's the only one who can stop this. We're losing everything. The banks are calling in my loans. The board is trying to oust me. Please, I'll do anything. I sat in my hotel suite, I'd left the mansion, of course, and listened to his messages, a small smile on my face. Wesley came by that evening with a bottle of wine. We've hit our first target, he said, pouring me a glass. We now own 5% of Hayes Construction. The 2 minority shareholders you impressed at the party? They sold their combined 8% to us this afternoon. You are now, secretly, the 3rd largest shareholder. I took the glass. It's not enough. I want it all. Patience, he said. We're just getting started. The board has called an emergency meeting for tomorrow. They've invited me as a representative of the new, concerned investors. They invited the fox into the henhouse, I laughed. Exactly, he said. And I'm going to suggest a full, independent audit of all company finances. Especially the East River project. And I'm going to nominate a new interim COO to oversee it. Someone with a fresh perspective. Who? I asked. He smiled. Me. This was better than I could have imagined. Barrett wasn't just losing his company. He was being replaced by the very man who was helping me tear him down. While Wesley was handling the corporate demolition, I was handling the personal. Something about Taryn still bothered me. She had disappeared after the party, and her father, Leland Vance, had issued a statement condemning Barrett and supporting his poor, victimized daughter. It was all PR nonsense. But my gut told me there was more. I was still recovering from my ribs, the ache was a constant, dull throb, a reminder. I had a follow-up appointment with Dr. Evans. As I was leaving the discreet medical center, I saw a familiar figure trying to slip out a side door. It was Taryn. She was wearing a hat, sunglasses, and she looked pale. But what caught my eye was the clinic she was exiting, obstetrics and gynecology. I quickly ducked around a corner. I called my private investigator, Taryn Vance. She was just at the Chapman Clinic, OB/GYN. I want to know everything. An hour later, I had the answer. Taryn was pregnant. About 8 weeks along. I did the math in my head. 8 weeks. The party was just last week. That meant. I pulled up my phone and checked the files I'd stolen from Barrett's computer. The hotel receipts. The bank transfers. And his travel itinerary. My blood ran cold, then hot. 8 weeks ago, Barrett Hayes was in Singapore and Hong Kong on a business trip. A 6-week-long trip. He hadn't been in the country at the time of conception. The baby wasn't Barrett's. I laughed. This was a soap opera. So who was the father? I called my PI back. I need you to look into Taryn's finances. Specifically, any large, unusual payments. The next day, I got another report. Taryn had been receiving monthly payments. $100,000 every month for the last 3 years. Not from Barrett. From a shell company. A shell company that my father's team traced back in under an hour. It belonged to my father-in-law, Garrett Hayes. I had to sit down. My head was spinning. Garrett. The old, sanctimonious patriarch. He wasn't just paying Taryn to be his son's mistress. He was, what? Paying her to keep quiet? And then, another, darker thought clicked into place. The dates. The PI had pulled Taryn's visitor logs from her apartment. Garrett Hayes had been a very frequent visitor. Especially when Barrett was out of town. Oh my God. I called Wesley. I need you to do something for me, I said, my voice shaking with a new kind of rage. I need you to get a DNA sample from Garrett. A cup he used, a napkin, I don't care. And I need you to run a test against Taryn. Mallory, what's going on? Just do it, I said. I think I just found the key to destroying them all. For good. Taryn wasn't just Barrett's mistress. She was his father's mistress, too. And she was pregnant with his father's child. This family wasn't just corrupt. It was rotten to the core. This changed everything. My revenge plan had just been upgraded from demolition to a nuclear strike. The opportunity presented itself a week later. A major charity auction at the Metropolitan Club. One of those high society, CNBC events. I knew Taryn's family, the Vances, were major patrons. I also knew that Taryn, desperate to save her reputation, would be there, playing the part of the wronged woman. I bought a table, front and center. I wore a dress of pure white silk. Angelic. Innocent. Rocco, as always, was my shadow, disguised as a chauffeur. Taryn was there, just as I'd predicted. She was holding court in a corner, dabbing at her eyes, telling a circle of society women how Barrett had tricked her. She was wearing a tight-fitting black dress, not even trying to hide the slight swell of her stomach. She was weaponizing her pregnancy. I waited until the live auction began. Then, I walked over. Taryn, I said, my voice carrying in the relative quiet. The group went silent. You look glowing. Pregnancy suits you. Her face went pale, then flushed with anger. How dare you, she hissed. Oh, I dare, I said, smiling. It's just, I'm a little confused. I've been looking at Barrett's calendar. He was in Asia for all of May and June. And you're, what, 8, maybe 9 weeks along? The math is just so tricky. The women around us gasped. Their eyes darted from me to Taryn's stomach. You're lying, she shrieked. Barrett was here. He came back for a weekend. Did he? I said, feigning confusion. That's not what his passport says. But you know who was in town? His father, Garrett. He visited your apartment, let's see, 6 times that month. Must have been comforting you while his son was away. Taryn's face crumpled. She knew. She knew I had her. The circle of women melted away, not wanting to be associated with this. You're a monster, Taryn sobbed. No, I said, leaning in. I'm just a woman who's very, very good at math. I turned to walk away. And then, she did something stupid. She lunged at me, her hands raised like claws. I'll kill you. I didn't even flinch. Rocco, who had been standing by the door, moved in a blur. He didn't touch her. He just stepped in front of me. Taryn, blinded by rage, tried to swerve. Her high heel caught on the edge of the plush rug. She stumbled, arms flailing, and fell. Hard. She fell spectacularly, right at the foot of the stage, in front of everyone. She screamed. A horrible, gut-wrenching scream. And as she scrambled to her feet, a dark red stain was spreading across the back of her white dress. Oh, my baby, she shrieked, clutching her stomach. My baby! The ballroom descended into chaos. People were shouting. I just stood there, watching, my face a perfect mask of shock and concern. I calmly pulled out my phone. I dialed 911. Yes, I said, my voice trembling. There's been a terrible accident. A pregnant woman has fallen. Please, hurry. Then I made a second call. To Barrett. Barrett, thank God. It's Taryn. She fell. There's blood everywhere. You need to come. She's losing the baby. His first reaction, before he could think, was, damn it. Now my father's going to kill me. Click. I hung up. I watched them wheel Taryn out on a stretcher. Not only had she humiliated herself in public, but she had also lost the one thing she thought would save her. The gossip columnists would have a field day. And I had his confession on tape. Now my father's going to kill me. I went back to the hospital. Not for my ribs, but for my father. He'd been quiet. Too quiet. I found him in his study, surrounded by the scent of cigars and old leather. The Taryn Vance situation, it's done, I said. He nodded, not looking up from a faded photograph he was holding. I know. It was messy. Dad, I said, sitting opposite him. When I mentioned Taryn's name. Taryn Vance, back in the car, you reacted. You knew her father, Leland. Why? Dominic sighed. He finally looked at me, and his eyes were old. So old. I never wanted you to be a part of this, Mallory. Your mother, she wanted you to have a normal life. My normal life got me 3 broken ribs and a cheating husband. Tell me. He pushed the yellowed envelope across the desk. The same one from my mother's things. But this time, he took out a different photo. It was a picture of my mother, beautiful and smiling, standing next to a younger Garrett Hayes. And a younger Leland Vance. What is this? I whispered. 25 years ago, my father said, his voice flat. Your mother wasn't just a designer. She was an activist. She was fighting a new development project. The company was cutting corners, using non-code materials, and the site was polluting the local water. What does this have to do with? The company was Hayes Construction, my father said. A joint venture with Vance Industries. Your mother, she got proof. Not just of the pollution, but of something worse. A protester died at the site. Beaten to death by company security. Your mother had a video. She was going to go to the police. I dug my nails into my palms. What happened? Garrett and Leland found out. They went to see her. They offered her money, a divorce settlement from me, anything. She refused. The next day, the police ruled her death an accidental fall. I knew it wasn't. I'd been collecting evidence for 20 years, but their roots in politics and business run too deep. I could never make it stick. I stared at the photo, my vision blurring. The truth I had been told, it was all a horrific lie. My mother. Murdered. By my father-in-law, and the father of my husband's mistress. What about the security guard who did the beating? I asked, my voice a raw whisper. Dead, my father sneered. Died in a car accident 3 days after your mother's funeral. You were waiting for this, I said, a horrible realization dawning. You were waiting for me to find out. I didn't want you to be blinded by my revenge, he sighed. But now you have your own reasons. I stood up and walked to the window. The gentle, kind mother who had taught me to paint, who sang me to sleep, had met such a brutal end. Dad, I said, turning back, my voice strangely calm. They have to pay the price. In blood. Not just Barrett. The entire Hayes and Vance families. I want inheritance of blood. A look of dark satisfaction crossed my father's eyes. Do you have a plan? Oh, yes, I said. Garrett Hayes' 60th birthday party is next week. And I'm going to give him a present he will never, ever forget. Garrett Hayes' 60th birthday party was the pinnacle of denial. Despite the public scandal, the stock crash, and the unfortunate incident with Taryn, Garrett was determined to project an image of power and stability. The mansion was lavishly decorated, a string quartet playing. I arrived, with Barrett. He was a broken man. His father had forced him to come, to put on a united front. He was pale, shaking, and wouldn't look me in the eye. He was just a puppet, and I was done with him. My sights were set on the puppet master. I wore a black dress. Simple, elegant, funereal. At my throat was a simple pearl necklace. My mother's. My dear, you came. Garrett boomed, greeting me with a broad smile. His eyes lingered for a moment on the pearls, and his face subtly tensed. I wouldn't miss it, Father, I said with a sweet smile. I'm so glad you remember them. Garrett forced a composed expression and led us to the head table. The party reached its peak, and the MC announced the toasts. Garrett took the stage, boasting about his legacy, never once mentioning the scandals. And finally, he said, raising his glass, I want to thank my wonderful daughter-in-law, Mallory, for her grace and understanding. Family is everything. As applause broke out, I gracefully stood up and walked toward the stage. Under the table, Barrett desperately tugged at my dress, but I easily sidestepped him. You're too kind, Father, I said, taking the microphone. As the daughter-in-law of this family, I've also prepared a special birthday present for you. I gave Wesley, who was standing by the tech booth, a nod. The large screen in the ballroom descended. Garrett's face tightened, a sense of foreboding in his eyes. First, I said, let's take a look at the actual blueprints for the East River project. I pressed the remote. The real plans, showing cheap, non-code materials and fake safety reports, flashed on the screen. Several city officials in the crowd paled. Mr. Hayes, what is the meaning of this? Shouted the director of city planning. It's a misunderstanding. Garrett rushed the stage. But I quickly moved to the next slide. Next, we have the transaction history of Mr. Garrett Hayes' Swiss bank account. For the past 3 years, you've transferred over $100,000 a month to Miss Taryn Vance. The ballroom fell dead silent. Taryn, who was sitting in a dark corner, let out a small scream. And finally, my voice suddenly turned sharp. Miss Taryn Vance's pregnancy diagnosis. If you calculate the date of conception, my husband, Barrett, was on a business trip in Asia. That's a lie. Barrett shot up from his seat. I also have the DNA test results right here, I said calmly, displaying the final slide. The lab report was clear. Paternity confirmed. Father, Garrett Hayes. Darling, I said, turning to my husband. The results say the child, the one Taryn just lost, it wasn't your brother. It was your child. The ballroom exploded. Barrett looked at the screen, at his father, and back at the screen. He let out a primal roar, like an animal, and lunged, not at me, but at his father. He tackled Garrett, sending them both crashing into the birthday cake. You slept with her?" he screamed, punching his father in the face. The situation devolved into complete chaos. Board members were leaving. Bankers were tearing up loan agreements. Reporters were snapping photos furiously. I descended from the stage, walking calmly through the sea of shocked stares. Behind me, I could hear Barrett's roars and Garrett's sobs. It was a beautiful, beautiful sound. CTA. My friends, as you can imagine, at that moment, standing there watching that entire, rotten family implode, it was a long way from the cold, dark basement. If you are still listening to my story, if you've been here with me through all of this, please, help me by liking this video and commenting with the number 1 down below. It lets me know that you're out there, and that you're wonderful for hearing me out. It lets me know you've been on this journey with me. Your support is an incredible encouragement. Please, just comment with the number 1 so I can see you. And now, you need to hear what happened next. Because it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. As I walked out of that ballroom, the sounds of chaos fading behind me, Rocco was at my side in an instant. "The car is ready, Miss Mallory." "Good," I said, my voice even. "I want to go to the hospital. I want to see something for myself." I wanted to see Garrett Hayes wheeled into the emergency room. We were halfway there, driving through the dark, quiet streets, when Rocco suddenly tensed. "We're being followed," he said, his eyes on the rearview mirror. I looked back. A black, unmarked SUV, its headlights off, was closing in fast. "Is it Barrett?" I asked. "No," Rocco said, his knuckles white on the wheel. "He's still at the party, crying over the cake. This is someone else." The SUV pulled up alongside us. And then, it swerved, slamming into our car. I was thrown forward, my seatbelt locking painfully. The impact, even in our armored car, sent a jolt of pain through my healed ribs, a phantom echo of Barrett's kick. "Get down!" Rocco yelled. He wrenched the wheel, but the SUV hit us again, trying to push us off the road and into the guardrail. In that instant, 2 motorcycles roared onto the scene, seemingly from nowhere. Their riders, dressed in black, fired at the SUV's tires. The SUV lost control, flipped several times, and crashed into a concrete divider, exploding in a fireball. "They're from the dawn," Rocco said, his breathing not even heavy. He smoothly corrected the car and continued driving, as if nothing had happened. "Are you all right, miss?" I touched the growing lump on my forehead where I'd hit the window. I gave a cold smile. Barrett must be truly desperate. Or Taryn. Or maybe Leland. "It doesn't matter," Rocco said. "They're amateurs. And they're finished." Back at the safe house, a discreet penthouse my father kept in Tribeca, I called him. "Dad, they sent people after me." I know, his voice was grim. I handled it. It's time to end this, Mallory. Leland Vance. He's the one who gave the order. He's desperate. His company is collapsing after your presentation. It's not enough, I said, walking to the window. I need to see them all pay. My father agreed. It was time. The next night, a silver van pulled up outside the cheap motel where Taryn was hiding. My men, Rocco's men, were professional. They took her, and they took Barrett, who was now a person of interest in his own father's assault case. They were brought to an abandoned warehouse at the docks. I was already there, sitting in the shadows, a single spotlight on two empty chairs. What is this? Barrett shrieked when they pulled the hood off his head. Who are you? Shut up, Rocco said. They threw Taryn into the other chair. She was a wreck. Her face was bruised, her hair matted. Barrett, I said, stepping into the light. His eyes widened in terror. Mallory! Thank God! You have to help me. These people kidnapped me. They work for me, you idiot, I said. This is all your fault. Taryn screamed at me. You ruined everything. That baby was my golden ticket. A golden ticket? I said. Is that what you call your father-in-law's child? Your brother-in-law? Barrett whimpered. Mallory, please. I was wrong. I was so wrong. It was all Taryn. She planned it. She pushed me to do it. She's the evil one. And my father. It was my father. He's the one who got her pregnant. I'm a victim, too. A victim? I said, walking circles around him. A victim who broke his wife's ribs? A victim who embezzled $3 million? A victim who hired a man to run his wife off the road tonight? No! That wasn't me. That was Leland Vance. Taryn's father. He said it would solve all our problems. I tried to stop him, he sobbed, tears and snot running down his face. Please, Mallory. You have to believe me. She's worthless. Take her. Just let me go. I'll give you anything. I'll sign the divorce papers, the custody, anything. Taryn just stared at him, her face a mask of pure hatred. You spineless bastard. Thank you, Barrett, I said. That's all I needed to hear. I clicked a small recorder in my hand. Rocco? The warehouse doors slid open, and the flashing blue and red lights of police cars flooded the room. Two detectives walked in. Barrett Hayes, one said, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, embezzlement, and multiple counts of fraud. Taryn Vance, you're under arrest for conspiracy and fraud. Barrett looked at me, his face a mask of disbelief. This was all a setup? Enjoy your 20 to life, darling, I said. I'll be sure to send you a Christmas card. 4 days later, a seismic shock hit the New York financial world. The Romano Group officially announced its acquisition of Hayes Construction. As the heir to the group, I held a press conference. I wore a Chanel suit and my mother's pearls. I announced a complete overhaul of the company, a new commitment to safety and ethics, and the establishment of a victims fund for the families affected by the East River Project, and by the crimes of Garrett Hayes and Leland Vance 25 years ago. A reporter asked, Miss Romano, as the new CEO, what are your thoughts on your husband, who is being investigated for murder for hire? I looked directly into the camera. I trust the law will deliver a just verdict. Personally, I feel a deep sense of regret over Mr. Hayes's actions. My only focus now is on healing, and on making this company one my mother would have been proud of. After the press conference, Wesley was waiting for me in the new boardroom. The final acquisition papers, Miss Romano. All they need is your signature. I glanced through them, then looked up. Wesley. Why did you help me? Was it just because of my father? He adjusted his glasses. At first, yes. I owed the Don my life. But now. He stepped closer. I've come to admire the woman you've become, Mallory. I let out a small laugh and signed the papers. Hayes Construction is in your hands now. I trust you'll turn it into a truly responsible company. Where are you going? He asked. To see an old friend, I said. The visitation room at the detention center was cold and sterile. Barrett was in an orange jumpsuit, his face unshaven. The moment he saw me, he lunged at the glass. You devil, he screamed. I calmly picked up the receiver. Barrett. Your charges are embezzlement, fraud, and murder for hire. You're looking at 20 years, minimum. Oh, and by the way? Taryn turned state's witness. She submitted evidence proving you conspired with her father to murder those protesters and me. And your father, Garrett? He had a heart attack in his cell. He's not expected to make it. Barrett collapsed into his chair, his soul leaving his body. And one last thing, I said. Hayes Construction is mine now. All the shares in your name, and your father's inheritance, have been liquidated to cover the funds you embezzled and pay damages to the victims. You are officially a broke designer. The sun was blindingly bright when I left the detention center. In just 6 months, I had gone from a victim locked in a basement to the heir of a multi-billion-dollar organization. Are you watching, Mom? The people who hurt you, they've all paid the price. 3 months after Barrett was sentenced, the company was renamed Romano International. I stood in the top-floor office, a glass of whiskey in my hand, looking out over New York City. Wesley walked in, not in a suit, but in a casual sweater. You've been staring out that window for an hour, he said gently. The board is gone. You can relax. I turned to him. It's quiet. It's over, Mallory. You won. I know. He walked over, standing beside me. Your father told me something. He said 20 years ago, my mother saved your father's life in a fire at a chemical plant. A fire set by Leland Vance. This brooch. He took a small box from his pocket. Inside was an exquisite pearl brooch, a matching piece to my mother's necklace. She left this behind. I took it, my eyes filling with tears. Sophia, he said, using my old nickname, I know this is sudden. But I want to be with you. Formally. He knelt. A year later, my father, his health surprisingly improved, walked me down the aisle. At the end of it, Wesley was waiting. I had tied my mother's brooch to my bouquet. On our honeymoon, I whispered to him, I think I'm pregnant. If it's a girl, I want to name her Lily. After my mother. He held me tight. Thank you, Mallory, for breaking this endless cycle. In the distance, the dawn of a new day was breaking. My mother's pearls shone under the starlight, like a final period at the end of a long sentence. And the beginning of a new one. Thank you all for listening to my story. It means more than you know. If you've ever felt like me, please, share your thoughts below. It's good to know we're not alone.